Welcome to Never Rewrite. I'm Isaac Askew.
And I'm Jeffrey Sherman. And today we're going to work through what various groups are thinking they're getting when they say yes to a rewrite. So I was talking with my brother recently, and he was like, "Hey, when people say yes to a rewrite, why? Like, what is it they think that they're getting?"
Hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, well, I don't know. Like, I know what developers are thinking,
Yeah, same.
and I think I know what managers are thinking. So I thought this is a great topic. Let's go through it. So
Sure, yeah, this is good.
let's kick off. What do developers think they're getting when they accept a rewrite or propose a rewrite?
Yeah. Okay, so my perspective, or at least
Yes.
before I realized it was a bad idea.
Yes.
um,
Well, yeah. Obviously, people who
right.
when you thought it was a good idea, why did you think it was a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, the code was really old. And so I guess from my perspective, I was thinking, okay, if we rewrite it in this framework, I wasn't even trying to do the cutting edge frameworks that people were,
Mm-hmm.
bragging about, but like a framework. Because some of them
Mm-hmm.
just didn't have frameworks. They were just, raw PHP with then scattered classes and stuff like that. And I thought, okay, well, we can take use of all these magic method functions people have got, all these cool hooks and life cycles in the code, things like that, or like generating migrations and models and like all these like really nice tools that will help me program faster and keep things clean.
Mm-hmm.
And then in test coverage, like really poorly architected code is hard to test. It's just objectively harder to test than smaller, clean functions are. And so I thought, okay, if we just rebuild it, and we can start with smaller functions, we can start
Mm-hmm.
categorizing everything, and I'll be able to write better tests. The code will be better. It'll be cleaner. We can write faster. Everything's more organized. And then there's like a little bit, 10% of it just feeling better to write in. It just didn't feel so nasty. Something. It was just more of a cleanliness thing for the sake of hygiene. My own preference.
Right. So to summarize that, I would say the developers expect a better work environment,
Yeah, exactly.
and unlike people who are very hard to change, code theoretically is very easy to change. If I don't like my work environment and it's code, I can literally throw it away,
Yeah.
unlike people. Uh, yeah, I agree. I think that's what developers think they're getting.
Oh,
A
and one other thing I guess to think of is there actually might be some better ways to construct things. Like, for example, if you see the database as a queue model, and you actually
Mhm.
go, okay, well, why don't we rewrite it? We could actually do it. Now Laravel's got their own queue system. I guess that you can plug in database to that, but you can also swap out to use SQS or other things.
Huh.
But some other kind of things that are available in the new technology that might actually help alleviate a problem. So not only do you restructure the code, but there's like other things you can do that will be much more cost efficient or something too.
Yeah, I was going to say not only there's you're getting a cleaner, more pleasant workplace to work.
Mm-hmm.
There's also it's a chance to work with something that seems new and interesting.
True. Yeah.
Is a secondary thing of I've seen lots of rewrite proposals where the main thing was I really want to use this new technology, and it only
Yeah.
makes sense if I'm doing a full rewrite.
Right.
Okay, so that's what developers think they're getting: better work environment, possibly a chance to play with something new that they think would be fun or interesting or possibly help their careers.
And a chance to architect something in the correct way that wasn't done correctly before, that kind of thing.
Okay, pride in to me that's pride in their work, but I guess a better work environment, be able to take more pride in their work, and learning. I guess would be the three.
Sure. Yeah, we'll go with that for now.
So what is IT leadership like? So we're talking the dev team managers, your VP of software engineering, your CTO, CIO. What do they think they're getting when they say yes to a rewrite? Because the team is coming to them and said, "Hey, we have this idea. We're gonna not do any. We're not gonna ship any new features for 6 months,
Yeah.
and we're gonna do all this stuff to make our lives better. And you, the CTO, have to approve this, and it's literally like $1 million if it's like 5 or 6 person team,
Right.
or $500,000. Like it's expensive. It's a lot of money. It's
Yes.
a
Yeah.
big proposal for no external value. or no direct external value from what the developers have been saying. So what are they getting?
I would assume that they think they're getting reliability. Like that thing didn't work well. It's a big part of their platform, and in rewriting it, there's some stability in this new framework because it's got better test coverage and it's the right software for the right problem, the right tool for the right problem. And so they're signing off on it because they expect this will increase the bottom line at some point and be a more stable product, I'm guessing.
Well, being unreliable is expensive. Outages are extremely expensive.
Yeah.
Just one, it pulls all your developers, your people away from what they were supposed to be doing to fix the outage. It adds to your support burden. It frustrates your customers and increases churn. So outages and stability has a lot of value.
Yeah.
I think a secondary concern, or a second concern, not secondary, if you have developers that are extremely unhappy with their working conditions, they could leave. Right? It's a happiness, or the leadership doesn't want people to be working in a bad environment either. And so, hey, let us clean house, and then we will be happier and more productive because we're happier and things are clean and we're able to do all this stuff. That's not insignificant if you're in a leadership role. Like if you're a CTO and you've got this team where people keep joining and quitting, that's a really expensive problem.
Right.
And so giving them 6 months to clean it up, if it stops, that could be worth it just on its own.
And you kind of reminded me of something too, like if it's built in a very old language that's hard to support and find developers for, then part of the reason could also be to build it in something more easier to hire for, like a more popular language that's got modern bells and whistles, but mostly is easy to hire people for. That's not like some dying language, for example.
Right. If you've got something written in Visual Basic Sharp or VB.net, that's what it would
be. Right. You can't find a whole lot of developers to support.
Not gonna find, You might as well try. You're probably easier to find COBOL developers than Visual Basic.net developers.
So they might be hoping for that, like ease of not just reliability, but the ability to maintain it should people leave. Because now they have to worry about, can we find anybody who can even work on this system? It's hard to find a developer for this. Something like that, maybe.
Yeah. Do you think, and this also pertains to developers, because we touched on it a little bit with developers, of they might think it's good for their career that they're going to use this new technology and whatnot. Do you think that there's a lot of incentive for leadership to be able to say, hey, I executed, this would be more of the manager, I executed this giant rewrite, and this shows that I'm an awesome manager. Or for the CTO to be able to say, my team embraced new technology of the day, and that's because I'm awesome and I let them.
Yeah.
And here's my blog post on LinkedIn.
I'd say, there's definitely an incentive there, because other companies, whether or not they realize that rewriting is almost always doomed to fail, they want to know, like if they're looking around and they see this person actually worked and succeeded on a rewrite and they need that, that's a little extra, dangling carrot on a stick for them to be like, oh, we could do this because this person did it. And I know it's not a good thing to do, but this guy succeeded in it. We need to do the same thing here. They rewrote all their finance thing to be in this other language, and it had a very similar tricky problem as what we need help on right now. Let's look for somebody who has that experience. I mean, I could see that being a juicy line item on a resume.
But do you think that's a motivating factor in people wanting to do a rewrite because it would get them the ability to put that on their resume?
Maybe. I mean, I could see somebody like fighting for that, at least in a meeting, just wanting to look good and like, I think our team can do it, and wanting the accolades of I succeeded in this, by helping my team through it. I don't relate to that, but I could see somebody maybe relating to it, I guess.
I think a very young or an early career me, a much younger me, I could think that I would have thought along those lines of, if we rewrite this, that would be good for my career because then I'll have experience with this new technology.
Okay. Well, there we go.
There we
so
go.
if that's your personal,
I guess I had thought
yes.
that, so I would not do that
the answer
now.
Is yes.
Yes. Okay. So that's our domain and our leadership.
Okay.
What about the product group? What does the product group get by saying, the development group comes to you and says, hey, we want to ship no new product features for the next 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, we talked about reliability. So they'll get reliability. Or that's what they think they're getting. What else are they getting for the product group? Because they're not getting features.
Yeah. I would guess maybe the product group wants to at least be able to communicate with the customer. Because like a lot of times, like product is on meetings with customers and they get a lot of complaints. If they can go back through to some customer who was crying on the phone with them or, bitching at them or whatever and threatening to leave, and they could say, we took it upon ourselves to do this rewrite that would solve your problems, and here we solved it. That seems like an incentive, and then they could use that to go, hey, we worked with so-and-so, we had all these huge issues with this particular problem, and because of the rewrite, we've solved them now. And that's something I can brag about. It's like I helped, figure out all these problems that led to us realizing that we needed to rewrite for whatever reason or something like that.
One thing that I had thought of is if the argument is building new features is so hard and cumbersome because the code is so bad and has so few tests, then new features are slow, and it's also hard to say how long new features will take.
That's a better answer, I think, yeah.
If you tell product, hey, we're going to deliver nothing for 6 months, but after that, we're going to be able to deliver features faster and on a more...
All those features you dreamt up, we'll tackle this right after. Okay.
Well, not just that we'll tackle all your features, but like we'll be able to give you meaningful estimates.
Yeah.
Like if I say...
that's a good call out. Because sometimes...
right now, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, they could ask you, how long will it take to add somebody's birthday here? And the common joke is like, that could take, there's like a whole YouTube skit on this taking, months because you have to pull this personalization information and the kind of private information. And they're like, okay, well, I'm just trying to add one little thing to this page. And then you try to dive into legacy code too, and you realize, if I change this here, I have to change it here, and the dates aren't formatted in the same way, and blah, 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 blah. And you're like,
date formatting
my God.
is such stories.
So the idea to be like, I can get you an accurate estimate and point it, and this is going to be a pretty dang close estimate for how long it'll take because we rewrote things and things are clean now, and it's a lot easier to add the features. I think that suggestion is definitely a better answer and probably what they're looking for in a rewrite.
Yeah, because that was the main one. Because that's what in rewrites that I have been involved with, that is usually the pitch to marketing is, we'll stop having outages. Yeah. And we'll have meaningful estimates on when you'll get your new features, like how long features will take and when you can get them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So how about the marketing group? Similar to the product group, but marketing is a different function. So if the marketing group gets asked, or told, hey, we're gonna spend 6 months, we're gonna do a rewrite, and there's no new functions coming out.
Yeah.
What are they, assuming they get asked, what would make them say yes to that idea? I had 2 thoughts, or if you want to go.
All I was going to say was that's a tricky one. I haven't put myself in the shoes of a marketing person as commonly as the other ones.
So number one is reliability. Right.
That makes sense, yeah.
Growing up, my dad worked for Ford in the 80s, and Ford had a terrible reliability problem in the 70s. And in the 80s, their whole marketing for literally a decade is quality is job one. And I was like, I don't understand. But anyway, young me didn't understand, but that's what the TV would tell me. Ford, quality is job one. And back when there were commercials. And that's a thing to go to market of. Hey, our quality was bad, but now we take quality seriously. Now our quality is good. We're not going to have outages.
Yeah.
It's a thing that you can now rely on, and I can now go to market of, hey, we have fixed all those things. It's a thing you can go to market with and like try to win back customers.
I think I blur the lines between product and marketing a lot because I feel like that's also kind of an answer I would normally hear out of product people I've worked with. That's kind of what they're looking for too. But marketing kind of makes more sense in this regard because that's what you would want to advertise truly
Right.
in emails back to people like, hey, we've had a rough last year with all these bugs, but now because of all of our efforts, you are going to have a more stable platform, and we're
Right.
better than our competitors because of that.
We've invested millions of dollars in this problem,
Yeah,
and now it's good
for you, the customer.
for you, the customer. Well,
Yeah.
and product and the marketing groups very similar because the other thing that I would think the marketing group would get is, hey, when product says we're going to build new features and you need to build a marketing plan around them, you can actually have a reliable release date.
Fair enough. Okay.
Because marketing without a release date is difficult, or it's more difficult.
Right. Okay.
Makes it even harder.
All right.
So what would finance get out of it? Right? You go to the CFO and you say, hey, I want to spend, like we have all these plans and we have models on how much, all these new features are going to bring in and yada, yada, yada. And I want to put all that on hold for 6 months and do something to address our reliability and, release cadence. Like what would the finance group get out of it?
I feel like they'd initially be skeptical.
Yes.
Like you'd need to come to them with some pretty strong statistics about how, like imagine like right now, if you had like all of the bugs that popped up or all the lost opportunities that happened because of issues from lack of reliability, and you could somehow quantify that and get that back to them and say the money lost on the pausing is much smaller than the long term that we'll gain from fixing these issues because we've quantified the loss of revenue of but in these issues that have popped up. That could be a good argument to them, but otherwise I think it would be kind of hard to convince them.
That's what I was thinking as well. The reliability argument of, hey, outages are expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Outages mean that we need more support people, which people are expensive.
Yeah.
It pulls developers away from what they were doing, which is expensive. It makes us offer refunds and credits to customers, which is expensive.
Yeah.
Like not being reliable is expensive. Is an expensive problem. And so I think that's the pitch to the finance team of, hey, we're going to put this new revenue generation work on hold, and we're going to cut up. It's a cost savings measure, I guess is the way to say it.
Yeah. And having a good way to quantify that, like I mentioned, where you can show that the offset is still worth it. That fixing it, like, because some people realize their platforms are not reliable, but because they're the only one at the market, or the only option at the time, they're not necessarily focused on fixing those issues because they get more customers and they lose, even if they're kind of a crappy product. So, in those cases, the finance team would, in those cases, the finance team might not be swayed as much. But then if you can show that, okay, these are just estimates of what we think we might get with new features versus tangible losses because of people churning because of the crappiness of our product, and somehow convince them that way, I think they would go, okay, this is all right, more akin to this, doing this idea than before.
Yeah, it's a pitch for a more mature product. Like I don't think it would go in your scale up phase, right? When you've got that hockey stick growth going.
Yeah.
Fixing problems probably isn't worth pausing. But once it's once it's starting to plateau and you've got a mature product and you've hit 10% of the market and you're stable at 10% of the market, then rewriting stuff to cut expenses is a much better pitch.
Yeah.
Okay. How about the support group? The people who are in tech support or frontline customer support, what's the pitch to them for a rewrite?
Assuming what you're rewriting is related to a lot of the issues they're getting in from customer support, the pitch would be, rewriting this, we're going to have less of those weird issues. You get a CSV import that never works, so customers write in and complain to you. If we rewrite this, the CSV import will always work, and they'll never bug you about that, and you'll have so much easier day-to-day related to other things.
Right. That's to me as well. You'd have fewer angry customer calls.
Yeah.
You would have to apologize less. I mean,
Right.
to me, that would be the most infuriating thing if I was a customer support person, would be to have to apologize to a customer because we have some bug that we just don't fix.
And I would probably, as a customer, putting myself in the place of a customer support person for a second, I would probably be excited depending on how embarrassing or annoying or frustrating some of those angry calls could get.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the back of my mind, I would probably still think if those problems go away, that there's just other problems that will be there next. So it's not going to solve everything. But I imagine I would probably be tempted by the idea that some of those would go away.
Right. I think it would be similar to the developer who was like, oh, I'd much rather have a nice, clean work environment.
Yeah.
Right. And if you've got a support group, like if you're a SaaS and you've got a customer support group that helps customers use the product,
Yeah.
Calls where somebody is confused by the product and you help them achieve their goal using your system, those are uplifting calls.
Yes.
You feel good
That's a
at
good
the end
call
of it.
out.
And then somebody calls up and it's like, oh, my CSV
It's
didn't.
broken again. And you're like, I've had 90% of my calls today with the same broken feature versus 10% where I actually got to help somebody. I can see that being really demoralizing.
Right. I think it would help the customer group, the support group, with their motivation, and to them, I think it's an easy sell.
Yeah. That's what they think. Yeah, they're getting. Okay.
So, lastly, customers. What are customers? I mean, you don't really ask them for a permission to do a rewrite, but if you were going to pitch a rewrite to customers, how does that go? What would you tell them? What's in it for them?
Unless you're talking to them through the marketing efforts that people are trying to sell, then they don't care because they don't really see, like, they don't know a rewrite happened, probably, unless the marketing team has told them it's going to be better for them.
Well, go with, imagine you're doing market research, right? You get a group of 10 customers on the phone, or you reach out to them and you send them a survey.
Yeah.
You say, hey, we've decided to push back these features that we said we were going to work on by 6 months, and instead we're going to address reliability. And I guess you ask them how they feel about that, and I guess...
Yeah, imagine it would depend, because some people would be frustrated that the thing they wanted for the longest time, they would promise they were going to get over and over again, they never going to get, they're annoyed. And then the other customers who are like, every time I log in, half the time my data doesn't load. I would really love for it to be always loading. They might be happy about that. So I think it depends. And I bet you it'll depend on the size of the customer too, because some customers, I bet you hit those pain points that don't scale well, and that's when you're trying to rewrite, and they care about the reliability of the rewrite. And the other ones are smaller customers that are just frustrated they can't get the same features they wanted out of your platform, and now they're hearing it's going to get paused. And so you'll probably just get a bunch of mixed answers and frustrations, I suppose.
Right. And I guess, customers at the end of the day don't really get a vote. Well, I guess they do get a vote, right? Because they could vote with
their complaints.
And their feet, they could leave.
Yeah, they vote with their money and complaints.
Yeah. But yes, if you did some customer research and you asked them, I guess, mixed bag, right? The people who are impacted by the bugs would be happy that you're addressing the bugs, although they'd probably also be like, working code is table stakes.
Yeah.
And the people who are looking for those new features will be annoyed because they wanted those new features. Possibly they bought it.
Yeah. And that brings us to another interesting thing too. Whenever the big customer gets their way because they're paying the most money, and then all the myriad of other smaller customers who don't get their way because you're building this one thing, they're like, who cares about that? Because only 5% of the customers actually need that thing because they're the loudest voice in the room with their money, essentially. I could see that being a little bit frustrating.
Well, I would think pretty much always that your larger enterprise customers are also the ones who would be most impacted by stability issues.
Yeah.
So they would they're the ones who would get the most value out of the rewrite, where the smaller customers would get the least value.
That's what I'm saying. Like the smaller customers will get mad that you still don't have that thing you told me you were going to support when I switched to your software, that new feature.
Cool.
So that's what, these are the categories of what people think they're getting.
Right.
These are not the pitches we make to everybody to sell them a rewrite. This is what people think they're getting.
Well, I would hope that this is the pitch you would make to them, or I guess I don't know. A lot of this is developers tell their managers, and then managers have to go to the CTO, and then the CTO has to make promises to the other groups.
Well, what I was trying to get at is I don't want people to use our conversation here as examples of pitches to make, because in general you shouldn't rewrite. But we're using these as examples to clarify what people think they're getting out of a rewrite, because 9 out of 10 times, 9 out of 100 times probably, the rewrite will fail, and you will not get these things. But these are how people are cleverly trying to sell what they think will happen.
I think they're honest. Most of the time, I don't think I've encountered anybody who pitched a rewrite knowing that the rewrite would fail.
Fair, yeah.
But yes, this is what people think they're getting, and the things they think they're getting are pretty reasonable. But I guess to reveal the plot, they're not going to get them. But we'll cover that in a future episode of what are you actually going to get.
Yeah, this could be a multi-part episode, because I think each of these categories that you've defined, with the exception of engineers, because we can just ask ourselves that, it might be nice to have a product person on or a customer support person on who's been pitched this before and what they thought they were going to get out of it, because that would be kind of an interesting thing. We're just assuming what we think people are getting out of this.
Yeah. Yes. So if you are in leadership or the product or marketing, finance, support, or a customer and would like to come on and tell us what you thought you were getting when somebody pitched you a rewrite, we would love to talk to you. I'd love to get your opinion on that. All right. Thank you all for listening. I'm Jeffrey Sherman.
And I'm Isaac Askew, and this is Never Rewrite.